everybody, this is Making the Call with Ronnie Nunn, your inside look at the NBA's trickiest calls and how officials handle them every night of the season. Our wizard of the whistle, the NBA's director of development, and for 19 years a referee in the trenches, is Ronnie Nunn. I'm Matt Weiner. Steve Smith is along to address all the tricks of the trade the players use to try to fool officials, as you did admit it for so many years.
You got it right, Matt. I tried to trick Ronnie 19 years. He's probably caught me my 14 years. Every time I tried a little trick of holding.
I don't buy that for a
He
second.
did. But a lot of times I got away. I don't want to tell him my tricks.
You got away with a whole lot. We're going to start with some controversial game-ending calls. First up is one of the more difficult players to officiate in the league, in my opinion at least, Manu with the ball in his hands at the end of the game.
And he makes a tremendous play, and it is going to be a legal play. Take a look at it. As you see him come down, he wins the game as the buzzer, and the move that he's doing, is it a legal move to gather, do a step back in this fashion, and make the basket? And here's another camera view of it. It's a back step into a jump stop. And he already takes a step in doing so. So let's go through the process of what that looks like. That's the gather, meaning the dribble has ended. He elects now to take a step, which you're allowed to take one step and a second step. His second step is a jump stop step. That means he cannot pivot any further.
Right.
He can pass it or shoot it. Well, you know what he's doing. He's going to shoot it so he can knock it down and be a hero.
So after that gather, you're counting 2 steps. Boom.
Absolutely, 2 steps, any way you want to do it. You want a broken fielder, you want to go dead to the hole, you want to go backwards, you go sideways. You got 2 steps. He happens to come down on the second one in 2 feet, which is a jump stop step. He can launch from there, but he can't pivot. Not on that jump stop. There's others that you can.
I totally agree with Matt. He's so hard to guard, and it's probably officiate because usually most guys are going one way. He gives you the gather step, the second step this way, and then the step back might be backwards for Manu Ginobili. He's a hard guy to defend as well, and he was a teammate of mine.
Yeah, absolutely. So he did a great move and obviously a legal move. Again, that jump stop, you cannot pivot. Another jump stop, you can.
All right, next tip, a touchy tip-in for Indiana's Mike Dunleavy. This was interesting, and this really was right at the end of the game.
Yeah, great shot right here, and all of a sudden people forget to box out somebody, and it is a goal. Question is, was it timely? Well, that's the first thing of order of business. It was timely because you will see as Mike goes up, the tap goes up, and then you'll see that line go across the board, the red light. The officials are just checking that only. Was it timely? They are not checking this piece. Can he tap it in? Well, yes, he can because the ball does not have the rim as its lower base. It's on the outside,
right,
and you may tap it. Right there, you could not tap it if you wanted to.
Right,
where the rim is at the lower base of the ball. So in that case, a legal tap in play.
And just to clarify, even if the ball is touching the side of the rim in that circumstance, because the rim is not below the ball, he's okay to touch it.
Yeah, he's okay to touch it. And a part of the ball can be in it as long as the middle base or the rim as a base to the ball is not squared that way. Then of course, you can't touch it.
Also, Ronnie, defensive player could have knocked it off because it was coming off, right?
And you don't see much of that. You're absolutely right, Steve. You don't see that. I don't think our players recognize the ball gets around the rim, people gets a little, worked up, so they don't want to necessarily slap it in, but they're more apt to tap it in. Legal play.
All right, finally, a block charge call to end a game, and it happened to involve 2 of the biggest stars in the entire league.
Yeah, this is a heck of a play, and, Denver needs this bucket. And one of the things officiating is to do is, you're not supposed to be seen or heard sometimes, but every once in a while, you've got to step up and make this play. This is a great defensive play for 2 reasons. One, Ginobili here, in this case, he gets there, and he's squared. He gets there before Carmelo. Now, he's got his gather step. He's only got room for one further step. That's the one there. He's already in place, Ginobili, and now he's going to launch on that step and knock Ginobili over. It is an offensive foul anytime in the game, and this one happened to come out the way it did at the end. Whatever the case, Ginobili is legal there in time. Had he not been there in time, we'd have had scored a goal and shoot one more. But this was a great play, and obviously a player who's showing defensive skills as well.
No, Ronnie, I totally agree. I thought that it was a close call at the end of the game. Obviously, if you're the home team, you want it to be a call in your favor. But let me ask, say if you're a referee in this game and for some reason you thought it was a tie. Tie goes to who?
Well, the old baseball thing is tie goes to the runner.
Right.
Well, tie actually defines the fact that you did not beat the player to the spot. So if it's a tie, it's going to be a block. You've got to beat the player to the spot and then absorb the contact. Ties, offensive to the favor of the offense.
Thought you were going to get him, didn't you?
I was going to get him, man. I was trying.
I know how you work. The offensive player. By the way, that call wasn't all that popular.
No, it wasn't all that
in
popular.
Denver.
No,
Correct, but unpopular. Up next, you take over the show. Your email questions for Ronnie are next.
I'm wondering, why is this not a shot attempt right here by Andre Iguodala? He didn't pass the basketball afterwards, and he threw the ball up to the rim. This should be 2 shots. This is a nice move here by Andre. He hears the whistle. He's getting ready to pass the ball to Lou Williams. He hears the whistle. Let me just throw it near the rim and see if I can get 2 free throws.
Reggie Miller, who was pretty clever about getting to the free throw line himself, thinks Andre Iguodala should have gotten a shot attempt and a couple of free throws out of that.
Well, you know, Reggie came up at a time when part of that was true. You could do that. And then when we changed it, the interpretation of it, you couldn't do it. In other words, what he was trying to do, Iguodala, was pass it. Reggie says that himself. And all of a sudden, on a whistle, on the actual whistle of the play, watch this play, on the whistle, he all of a sudden says, hey, this is an afterthought, very important word. I hear the whistle. I'm going to make this a 2-shot foul. Well, the interpretation now is recognized as being something of an afterthought, trying to make 2 shots when it really wasn't the case. The ball should go to the sideline.
Is that the language officials are taught and are working with, an afterthought?
Yes, if you recognize the play as being an afterthought, then you know that you're not going to give 2 shots for the act that occurred.
I got to say, I like that. I don't like that. I wouldn't want that to be a shot attempt.
I do. On that place, I would definitely. But there's some guys, Matt, as you know, they go to fake the pass and try to go up into their shot. That's going to be very touchy. Well,
you got a good point. As long as it's very, very tight, and it looks like the player is doing an habitual motion in a scoring method of a layup or a jumper, then with that habitual motion, you're going with 2 shots.
Right.
But if you see any cadence of break and play, where it looks like he's changing his mind,
he clearly changed direction.
Yes.
Was that because of his head? Was looking toward the pass?
His head, and all of a sudden, he also responded after a whistle. He responded after the whistle. They gave him a new thought.
He changed course after the whistle.
Reconverted his body, and there you go. So you can't get 2 for that.
All right. Time for your emails. Ask Ronnie at NBA.com. And first up, it's Lucas from Pennsylvania who wrote in the Bucks Heat game, Carlos Arroyo made contact with Scott Skiles on the court. This was interesting. What is the proper call here, and why wasn't Skiles thrown out of the game? It was his 2nd technical foul.
Hey, you know, Lucas makes a good point. Watch this scenario go about. Here's a pass, cross pass, and all of a sudden, Scott Skiles is over there in the corner trying to get the kind of information he's trying to send over to the official about a 20-second problem. And he's found himself on the court, and he bumps a player on the court. The officials are talking about it. There's Scott. He's spotlighted. Let's peek at him right now. Here's the skip pass all the way across the court. And all of a sudden, he's in the way. Accidentally or intentionally, he's in the way. He bumps a player. That is automatically a technical foul, unsportsmanlike. And in this particular game, he had one previously. He would have been ejected. So here's the bump play. He gets the technical foul for that. He leaves. Arroyo, whomever, may shoot that shot. And, of course, we play the game from there. The other piece to it is had he bumped Arroyo while he was shooting, then that goal would have scored, and still the technical would have followed.
Why wasn't he ejected?
He should have been. I think the officials at the time were thinking maybe this particular act, because it appeared maybe incidental, it didn't appear intentional, they might have lost their thought on the rule. Rules are very important, and they gave him the technical foul, but they called it a non-unsportsmanlike technical.
Gotcha.
And so therefore...
It's 2 unsportsmanlike technicals that get you ejected.
Get you ejected.
They called it a non-unsportsmanlike, but you're saying incorrectly.
Incorrectly, and that time it came out, he should have been ejected, and that's a piece that can happen sometimes with officials with rules and something with a sense of recognizing something that might not fit in the rule, and for a moment they all had a glitch.
Matt, I think I got it. First of all, a lot of people asked about that play, the coach's box, and that's legal for Scott Skiles to be all the way down, not on the court, but down the sideline, correct, right?
Yes.
But this is where I have you, Ronnie. What if, say, Milwaukee was up 3,
yes,
and I intentionally go out there, they're playing against the Boston Celtics, he's Ray Allen, and I bump him so he can't take a 3-point shot to tie the game up with 1 second left. They get the free throw, they take the basketball out, but it's not enough time to shoot the 3. What do you do in that case?
Well, I tell you what, it's an interesting ploy, and the answer to that is the same rule. However, I mean, let's discuss this with Joe Borgia before we went on. He had it in his mind as well concerning the play when I shared it with him. And he said, hey, the implications of doing that is going to cost you probably a major fine and a major suspension by being out on the floor, whether you appeared purposely being out there or not. You interfered with a critical play by, first of all, not supposed to be out there, and you did that. I think the implications that follow that play is going to be grave. However, at the time, the rule stands as it is, as you see it there as well.
So you could help your team win a game.
I think so,
knowing
man.
you're going to pay a heavy price.
I might have to take that one if it's to win a championship.
Well, I hope not. But if it does happen, I'm sure the NBA and the upper group, Stu Jackson and others, will talk about this, and it won't happen again. I can tell you that.
That would
be man. I thought I had
interesting roll of the dice.
One of these weeks I'm gonna get him.
All right, Samantha is up next. She writes in from Georgia and writes, with 0.2 seconds left in regulation, Shane Battier threw the inbounds pass that hit the rim and the clock ran out. Did the officials handle this play correctly by assessing a do-over?
Yeah, and by the way, we seldom have do-overs, and this is a case where you do have a do-over. The ball is passed in, the clock may not start until it hits one of the players on the floor. It doesn't start because it hit the rim. Remember last year we had a guy that thought about goaltending that play. But in this particular case, the hands must touch the ball. They did not. And then all of a sudden there's zeros on the clock. Scola kind of doesn't have the exertion he should in tapping the ball, and the play is dead. And that's why we redo it. We redid the play because there was nothing gained, nothing lost, except the play was botched up because a clock operator started the game clock earlier than they should have.
Okay, that is on the game clock guy then.
The game clock guy.
He was working for the Rockets as well. He was in Houston.
You know, sometimes that happens.
No, just
you got to go with the rule. I would say, however, if you had a play that was that close and the players did not continue if they continued their exertion, not hearing the horn. Sometimes when you hear the horn, players go flat.
Right.
And in all fairness, you have to recognize that. But if the play had continued legally, where the players were involved and Scola tipped it in, I think we would have had a different thing. We'd have called a clock malfunction, and we would have scored that. So little difference of situations based on what happens in a game.
Wow.
It's tough.
It's tough.
Complicated stuff. Coming up, the NBA's referee farm system and how it develops world-class officials.
Wow, Brendan, you got to check out the new NBA.
D-League refs got some first-hand feedback on their work. South Padre Island, Texas was the scene of the 7th annual D-League Showcase, where players tried to catch the eyes of NBA scouts. But it's also a place for game officials to display their skills and hone their craft during the Referee Mentor program.
Showcase was great for us because 4 games a day over 4 days, we brought in 30 referees. No. Gonna be penalty. 34. It's just a great opportunity for us to see them, to evaluate them, to mentor them, to break video down with them. So it was a win-win on both sides.
When you look at your video and you're looking at plays, pretend something happened and say, how would I have addressed that? What would I have said at that moment?
It begins with the referees having morning meetings, and then they go out and they work games where they're evaluated by an observer. Then they come back and do video breakdown of that game where we really get very detailed into positioning, mechanics, play calling.
Former NBA officials Don Vaden and Ed T. Rush were there to provide guidance and evaluation for the D-League referees.
I need to be in a place where I can see the entire landscape, right? Mistake number 1. It's really a teacher's and a coach's dream. We've got the blue chippers here. It's like teaching at an Ivy League school and teaching at a very high academic level, because you have people that are just tremendously absorbed in the process.
From this side of the lane to the other side, he gets his leg, and he comes across, and the guy can't get to the rim. The information that they give us is second to none, showing us how to break down video, showing us where we need to be at on the court, showing us how to manage games, a lot of stuff that helps us succeed. No, he didn't get, no, Ron, he did not get you with the body. Hand is part of the ball.
That's their goal, is try to make it to the NBA. And you try to, use experiences that you